Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Round 5 of the Ozicar Formula Ford Series comes to us from the home of horsepower, Sandown International Motor Raceway. Not far away at all from where I was born. You'd have to have a strong arm, but it would be a stone's throw potentially. And what a track it is. We love it for the kind of racing it produces. 2 long straights with some twisty, challenging, connecty bits either end of it. And all set in a very accessible part of Melbourne. So round 5 of Ozicar Formula Ford, it has been an enthralling championship and the first time that these new Formula Fords on iRacing have come to Ozicar competition, following in the footsteps of Skippies, Vs, F4, all of that to come before it. This is how the championship shapes up at this point. Stuart Vaughan has been near flawless, near unflappable there, leading the championship at 398 points. Ewan Baker is on 377, James Chastanoff on 371. Tell you what, John Merritt, you would not count him out there in 4th on 365, and the top 5 is completed by Brodie Shepherd. And Tim Harris, Tony Baker, Dennis Hancock, Robbie Bradbury, and Sean Doyle are the top 10 in points as we get ready for tonight's racing. Look into the format now. 3 sprint races, and we've got qualifying just finishing up at this moment. And then race 1 is 12 laps based off that qualifying. Race 2 is 12 laps with a reverse top 8. And then race 3 goes another 12 laps from the progressive grid, race 2 to 3. Those are our 3 short but hopefully very exciting Formula Ford races coming up here at Sandown. I'm David Haynes, joined by Jason Fewens. Jay Kennedy is on our production. We're very much looking forward to 3 close races at a circuit that I think really will lean into the strengths of the Formula Ford in terms of the draft pack battling and everything we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, David, it's a very simple circuit. It's if you look at it from the aerial point of view, 2 main straights along the front, along the back, so heavy drafting zones, and of course some really heavy braking zones heading down into turn number 2 and turn number 9.
Let's look at the grid then with qualifying completed. John Merritt, I said don't count him out, and that was before I knew he was on pole for race number 1, starting on the front row of the standing start with James Chastanoff. Next row back is the championship leader Stuart Vaughan, and second in those points Ewan Baker, so they've got plenty to fight for there, starting off of the second row of the grid. Third row is Tim Harris and Braden Martin. And behind that, Jacob Wallmeyer and Manzella Pluck, potentially joining the grid there. Tony Baker, Darren Shannon are 9th and 10th. Behind that, we find Dyson Freeman and Dennis Hancock. Warren Henry and Robbie Bradbury, 13th and 14th. Gosh, I was already hungry. That livery made me hungrier. They're revving though. They're ready to go. They start from quite a decent distance down the pit straight here for sure. Going to be a pretty quick run towards turn number 1 for the first of 3 races. The inside line is where the pole sitter gets to start from, but Merritt has not had quite the same jump as the driver around the outside who ends up the wrong side of the curb. These Formula Fords sit really, really low. And for James Chastanoff, he did almost get shuffled out there. He refuses to quit though, still trying to get around the outside of John Merritt for the race lead as the championship leader. He's going to get up into third there. Ewan Baker getting the wrong side of one of those curves there and not getting the drive onto the long back straight.
Yeah, pretty clean start from most of the field there, making their way through. Like you said, those curbs through the opening sectors are pretty aggressive here. Put these low profile Formula Fords, but heading down into the fastest corner on the circuit now. Chastanoff just tends to give way to the tuning pulse Formula Ford as they make their way down into Dandenong for the first time. Single file as they duck into the tight left-hander at turn number 9.
Quality opening lap so far, and the side-by-side battling continues a little deeper here with Baker trying to hold on to his position, getting shuffled out wide there. Braden Martin and the New Zealand Sim Racing teammate to Ewan Baker, Mandela Pluck, goes through there, and you see them all picking a lane, going one way, moving the other, moving about a lot in the toe, pulling out, looking for track position down towards turn number 1. But John Merritt gets to the race lead there, defending James Chastanoff. Teammates side by side as another one of those Pachuca Toyota Pulse tuning cars gets a little out of shape and wide through the paved runoff there, and Shannon's gone a little off circuit. But with 1 lap completed, they are still oh so close in this field.
Yeah, it looks like Warren Henry at turn 2's had a spin as well, but we look further at the front of the field. It's as it was last time round with the tuning pulse car out in front. Chastanoff doing a look on the outside here. He's got the run with the draft down the straight, but he finds himself on the wrong side of the circuit, but he manages to duck around as they make their way down the hill through the flip-flop with Stuart Vaughan and shadowing every single move they make.
Underneath the bridge, Vaughan has really done well to buy into this fight with himself, Merritt, and Chastanoff. Pretty quick races here in this 3-race format. Some others we've seen have been 2 races per round. So we've got 3 races in this round without any compulsory pit stops like we had seen from some others. 3 wide on the pit straight. Why not? Vaughan from third. Can you get all the way to that race lead? Pulling out of one toe, pulling out of the other. To the extreme inside he goes. The driver in the middle's pretty brave there as well as far as Chastanoff's concerned, and he holds on to that race lead because it was maybe a little too ambitious, that move from Vaughan.
Yeah, very heavy braking zone into turn number 1. Just ran a little bit wide, just left the door open for the chassis in the middle there to duck through and regain the lead. As a result, the battle between Vaughan and Merritt for second and third has given Chastanoff a 0.6 second lead as they make their way down the back straight for the 3rd rotation here tonight of 12 laps. That draft though won't do Chastanoff any favours, and will pull Merritt and Vaughan straight back onto the tailpipes.
These cars will be super quick off that back straight, and then as they have to slow down without any aerodynamic downforce. Ooh, that looks like a bit too much curb. They do not look like they are reacting well at all to the apex curbs or the exit curbs. Seen a lot of drivers lose time from trying to extend that. In final corner, it all looks pretty good from Chastanoff, Vaughan and Merritt. This is John Snell having some dramas at the end of that back straight. Look at Chastanoff play conga line with the field all the way down to 10th place. Drive behind follows him, drive behind follows that, drive behind follows that, like that toy Caterpillar I used to have.
So lap number 4 now as they make their way around through turn number 1, and then of course the left-right section of 2, 3, 4. Very quick sequence of corners here, hard on the brakes for that all-important run down the back straight, which is technically the longest straight on the circuit. So real critical you get a good run out of there. Vaughan's done exactly that. He's right on the tailpipe to Chastanoff now. So draft benefit, looks like he's going to pull out on the right-hand side and have a bit of a look. We saw Chastanoff carry enough speed heading down into Dandenong a couple of laps ago to get the move done. And side by side, Chastanoff and Vaughan, nobody is giving an inch.
So gutsy to try to go around the outside there, but he's just about pulled it off, has Stuart Vaughan. And he goes to the race lead, and this battling keeps others close in the group behind. Dyson Freeman with some damage has dropped off. Braden Martin and Mandela Pluck were going side by side on the back straight, and Martin's got himself into 5th. starting to see maybe a couple of extra car lengths between 4th and 5th starting to open up there. Here's Peter Wilkinson. You can't park there, Peter.
No, out of all
He's
the spots,
clearly had a bit of a drama.
all the spots on the circuit you want to be facing the wrong way. That's probably not one of them, being a bit of a blind corner. But back up the front, it is Stuart Vaughan leading this little train. James Chastanoff, John Merritt, and look who's joined the party. Ewan Baker, fastest lap of the race, and he has made this a four-way battle for the lead on lap 5 of 12.
Yep, precisely he has, as the leaders, tense over the cars behind have then gone straight into the wall. It's Mandela, Pluck, and Tim Harris, and Pluck has beached it on the curb. He's high-sided it, he's bogged it. Tim Harris has got massive suspension damage. He always parks it in front of his teammate, and the leaders go 3 wide. Merritt's going to have the inside line. Chastity's going to be all the way around the outside, where we saw Vaughan pull the move off a lap ago. This time it looks like a super aggressive late move there from Vaughan. I suspect Merritt will just have this race lead. They're all bogged up, too wide, too deep here, chopping off each other. No one taking the line that is optimal to carry speed through here, and they're going to lose a bit of time to each other all on this lap. Merritt, with the race lead, is going to have them follow him back down the straights again. Braden Martin catches the leaders.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lap ago we were talking about being 4 in this little battle, that little runner all across the back straight. Braden Martin's joined the party, so this leaves a very, very healthy... Oh, that is a hard hit back down to Dandenong.
Got it wrong off the previous curb there. It snapped right and then got airborne off the curb. And then behind that, Peter Wilkinson just had his own little spin in the Formula Ford. Track temp's 38 Celsius with an 18 Celsius air temperature, so there's a lot of UV in it. iRacing modelling a hole in the ozone layer potentially. Side by side for second here with Vaughan and Chastanoff down the back straight towards the super committed left-hander here, and them going side by side behind him is so good for Merritt in the lead. That's off the track. That's out of control for Ewan Baker, and he just gets it back underneath him in that 4th place spot there. Doesn't lose any either, but it would have been big wheel work to hold on to it.
Yeah, so Merritt just making a bit of a gap. He's got that lead out to 1 second. Probably the biggest gap we've seen so far in the race. We are lap 6 of 12, about to start lap 7. So you can see the drivers just making sure they're in the draft of the car in front as they weave away on the circuit. There's a car coming out of the pits on the right-hand side. We need to be careful. It's one of the locked-on cars. Might be Tim Harris coming back out of the pits.
Vaughan crossing back with Chastanoff in towards turn 1. You see that in all sorts of categories here, that the switchback can really work, turning in from wider to the narrower exit and defending your position that way rather than just trying to outbrake the other driver. Merritt with a 1.3 second lead. Chastanoff in second. Is it his job now to try to hunt that back down? Vaughan behind him is not going to make it easy for him, as they've got a little bit of traffic there. Mandela Pluck has also rejoined the race between where 1st and 2nd is. So you spot him there. That's not Ewan Baker. Ewan Baker is deeper in the train. Mandela Pluck, having beached it, high-sided it on one of the curbs, has come back out, basically smack bang exactly 1 lap down.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm sure him and his teammate Ewan Baker will be on the radio comms to each other, but using the draft here, you can see Stuart, Vaughan, Chastanoff and Baker and Braden all using that toe from the lap car as he stays on the left-hand side to get out of the way. Doing a really good job. But out in front, Merritt has this one under control at this stage. Nice, healthy gap. Plenty of daylight between him and P2 as they make their way around turn 1.
Real heads-up stuff, Mandela Pluck just letting them all go. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th all through, and their battle continues as it was before. The short wheelbase when these cars just look super snappy off the curbs or on turn in as the rear gets very, very light. 1.2 seconds. Vaughan is following Merritt along. Martin's going to pull out in this group from 5th, looking to get side by side for 4th, and he does. The inside is where I'd want to be here, but Baker is just so brave out there. They've both given each other space. Fantastic. Martin, looks like he had it on the exit. He might not, though.
Yeah, Cheston off in front, just sort of checking up at the apex of turn number 9 down at Dandenong. And of course, that might have checked up Baker and Braden Martin there in the background, but they're all back up to speed now. Stuart Vaughan's got his eyes on. He is chasing down our race leader at the moment. Fastest lap of the race, John Merritt out in front. Stuart Vaughan sitting in P2. He takes a new fastest lap, so plenty of tyres and plenty of speed left in these cars as the laps count down.
And they will go past super quick, 12 laps of this circuit. Oh, they touch Baker and Martin, is it, that goes off? It is Martin out in the grass. Just a tiny touch of wheels. So easy to happen in these Formula Fords with their open wheels. The lightest of contact sends Martin all the way around. Baker was hurt by it. Not as badly. Having a second look at it.
Of course, not a lot of contact there, but just enough to unsettle the car. And as it was turned in, the back steps around. And we said short wheelbase on these things, they turn around on the drivers pretty quick. So Braden Martin with minimal damage, back out circulating again. He is still inside the top 10. But out front, John Merritt leads this one by Stuart Vaughan by 0.7 of a second. So in the last lap, Vaughan has reeled in 0.3 of a second. And as every metre ticks by, he seems to be getting closer and closer.
Now heading into race 2, we will have a reverse grid top 8. A little bit more traffic for the leaders to get past. At the moment, that 8th place is held by Braden Martin, so he would go to pole for race number 1. It's actually pretty critical for his round as a whole that he stays inside of that top 8 after the spin he's just had, and he's just been able to do so. Still actually going to try to fight with Dennis Hancock over 7th, so keep an eye on that. It's a top 8 reverse grid going into the next race.
You can see that battle for 7th and 8th on your screen at the moment as we see Douglas Gowans dive into the pits for an unscheduled pit stop. So potentially suspension damage there, maybe hitting some of these curbs too hard, and the poor little Formula Ford has suffered the consequences. But John Merritt, Stuart Vaughan, and this gap for the lead is now down to 0.3 of a second. As you can see on your screen, Vaughan very wide, fully committed as he makes his way down through there, sliding through the left, right as they make their way down the hill underneath the Penrite Bridge, and I'm sure Merritt knows exactly Vaughan's there because he's making him, making sure he fills both left and right mirrors as John Merritt.
It's pistols drawn at 8 or 10 paces with just the two of them in a duel here with 2 laps to go now in race number 1. Chastity is just out behind them. Vaughan has caught Merritt at the race lead. 2 more to go. Just looks like a mano-a-mano fight for Vaughan to try to preserve his championship lead at this point.
Yeah, well, Chastanoff could come back into this if they go side by side down through the sequence of turns 7, 8, 9 and really check each other up. Could be a last lap battle, but I'm sure both these drivers are smart enough to know what they've got to do to maintain that lead. They don't want to throw it away. A bit further back in the field, Braden Martin has got around Dennis Hancock. So at this stage, Dennis Hancock is in that prime position for the pole for start on race number 2 with Braden Martin on the front row also. But back up the front, this is the view from John Merritt. Vaughan has taken the lead of the race with a lap and a quarter to go.
Yeah, precisely. Field sprung a little further with Chastity 3rd, Baker in 4th. 2nd in the championship, back there in 4th, is making this look pretty good so far for Vaughan, but with 1 lap to go, either of them in it. You can see Barney waving the white flag, as they do in North America. At Queensland Raceway, at least, they like to hold out a last lap board. That's the way we typically do it down here, but I think people know what a white flag means, and these 2 drivers absolutely do. They know what's at stake here on this final tour of Sandown.
You can see some lap traffic further down the road. These guys aren't going to catch them on this last lap, so it should be a genuine shootout. Merritt moving around under brakes, just trying to unsettle Vaughan as they make their way around turn number 4, a little bit further back in the field. 444 car, Jacob Wallmeyer, I think they're just having a bit of a look under brakes as well, not able to get the job done.
Now he's still inside of that top 8. Dennis Hancock with the last spot in the top 8. Vaughan moving one way and the other on the back straight, looking to break the toe. He's been very, very confident at this part of the lap here. Really getting it sideways off the curbs, breaking it and getting it shuffled into the apex there. This seems like the kind of circuit where the timing line comes up late enough out of the final corner that you could get a tow and a run to make it another photo finish Aussie car style at the end here. And that looks like what Merritt's going to have to do is just be right there, get a perfect run, try to take the shortest line to the checkered flag, but can he do anything about it? He's going to try. I think the lines come up just in time for Stuart Vaughan to win by 0.095 of a second. Chastanoff in third, Baker in fourth. Other Baker, Tony Baker in fifth, Jacob Warmeyer sixth, Braden Martin seventh, and Dennis Hancock has crossed the line in eighth, which will give him pole position going into race 2 as we take that top 8 reverse grid. No such thing from race 2 to race 3, just from this race 1 as we head next into race number 2. And can we get another attempt at a photo finish between Leon Williams and Darren Shannon? Well, they can try, and Leon Williams can cross the line. In that case, just about half a tenth clear.
So battling right across the line, right outside the top 10. That's race number 1, 12 laps of action-packed Formula Ford Series here on Ozicar Simspeed TV. Stuart Vaughan taking the win there, but like I said, by 0.096 of a second. John Merritt, after leading probably 85% of that race, had to settle for second, but we know he's got the speed and the racecraft to potentially come back and push for a win in race number 2. James Chastanoff, Ewan Baker, Tony Baker round out your top 5, with Jacob Warmeyer doing an excellent job. P6 there for him. Braden Martin, Dennis Hancock, Nathan Verney, and Robbie Bradbury round out your top 10.
Yeah, with your mind, of course, on that top 8 reverse grid. Drivers finishing on the lead lap with Leon Williams, Darren Shannon. We saw them pretty close. Warren Henry, Brendan Nealon, John Snell, Peter Wilkinson, and Ira Felberg. Just takes one trip on the tow truck for Mandela Pluck, Tim Harris, and Douglas Gowans to go the lap down. Dyson Freeman, I think, also had a big hit off of the back straight. So with the top 8 in effect, this is how they're gridding up right now, with Dennis Hancock on the pole, on the front row, on the inside for turn number 1, with Braden Martin on his outside. Jacob Warmeyer and Tony Baker the same, but a row back. And then Ewan Baker and James Chastanoff. That top 8 reverse grid completed by John Merritt and Stuart Vaughan. Behind them, it's just as you saw them finish in race number 1. They're almost all ready to go. Our svelte grid of Aussie car Formula Fords. And the starters lights will come on now for our 21 Formula Fords. Race number 2, again, just 12 quick laps, and we do have a jump start from Tim Harris, who's engaged the gear way too early, hasn't taken any of the advantage, and he's got dramas. He's going to go all the way to the back regardless. I think he's just got problems rather than any attempt at trying to jump the start or preempt it too much. But for the race lead, around the outside goes Braden Martin. Lightning start for him as Tony Baker and someone else goes off on the outside of turn 1. A little bit of contact there. Martin got clean around the outside, but in the middle is where the sandwich got pressed.
Yeah, turn number 1, concertina effect. That may have been Baker and Baker actually getting tied up into turn number 1.
We can't call them the Baker boys. That's already trademarked.
Braden Martin weaving, trying to break the toe of the cars behind as he makes his way down or up the hill for the first time. And the 64 of John Merritt, James Chastanoff side by side. It looks like we're having a deja vu of a race number 1, but bit of clear air for Braden Martin. He has shown excellent speed apart from that little bit of contact in race number 1. So while the rest of them fight for the crumbs, Braden Martin potentially putting the tail between his legs, head down, and making hay while the sun shines.
Ewan Baker had a cheeky little late move down the inside there as the concertina effect was going on. He wanted to break in line. He decided, you know what, I'll actually pop down the inside. Now here's the contact. Oh, does the New Zealand sim racing car there? Well, wouldn't have been Mandela Pluck because he was inside of the top 8. It would have been Ewan Baker. Did he get out just a little bit wide? So it was the double Bakers there. Need 11 more for a very easy low-hanging joke.
Chastanoff using all the curb and then on the exit of turn number 1. He's trying to carry as much speed through turn number 1 as he makes his way down through turns 3, 4, carrying momentum. But John Merritt doing everything he needs to at the moment. Dennis Hancock doing a pretty good job. Still sitting in P4. Stuart Vaughan is in P5 after winning race number 1. Ewan Baker sitting back in P7. So he's got some good speed in front of him. Let's hope he hasn't got any damage, and we can see him fighting for a potential podium as the laps count down.
So those drivers that kind of finished on the podium positions of race number 1 that have started 6th, 7th, and 8th in this race looking to make their way forward. Vaughn already up 3, and we're going to have a look at Ira Felberg. Well, yeah, couple too many rotations there for Mr. Felberg. He almost held on to it, but then he's sideways in such a precarious spot that what followed almost felt inevitable. 10 laps to go here. Braden Martin, 1.6 second lead. He's done very well out of that reverse grid, very well out of the carnage that happened behind him in turn number 1 to try to break away, but there are some quick drivers behind him now who are just starting to come into their element. Look at Chastanoff in 2nd, Merritt in 3rd, and Vaughn's now worked his way up into the 4th position as well. So it's a horse racing track, not a greyhound track, but he is very much the rabbit at the moment to some very quick greyhounds.
Yeah, Braden Martin doing a pretty good job out there at the moment. Got a wingman in the form of Chastanoff sitting in P2, but he won't be happy with that. I'm sure he'll be doing everything he can to try and minimise that gap. Merritt having a big look under the inside at the top of the hill as they make their way down through the flip-flop again. That's locked on car of 282 taking evasive action. Is that Tim Harris, I think? Nathan Verney, sorry.
And I expect his spotter will be telling him, they say you cut the course, you'll have to slow down and give up the time gained, but he doesn't seem to have lost a whole heap out of it just yet. If there was a slowdown, he's already cleared it at this point, so he can get back into the slipstream and get back into the run. And here's Chastanoff demonstrating what it's worth in a Formula Ford. The long straights here. The speeds that they're doing is sort of 210, 220 kilometers an hour. Quick enough to put just a little bit of hair in your chest when you're basically sitting an inch above the ground.
So Merritt and Chastanoff battling side by side, slowing each other down, and on top of that, Braden Martin just on his last laps and rotation around the circuit put in the fastest lap of the race. So that gap from first to second now, 2.5 seconds, something pretty uncommon that we don't see a lot of here in Ozicar Series. They tend to be pretty close racing. As we jump on board the helicopter view and have a look down, you can just see Merritt having the inside line as they make their way down through turns 7 and 8, hard on the brakes. Chastanoff pretty careful not to ram into the back of Merritt there as they make their way under the Penrite Bridge. Circulation around here for another little lap. They tend to fly by pretty quick with just over a minute per lap.
Chopper was dangerously close to panning a bit wider and giving us a traffic report on Dandenong Road, but there's friendly fire and also Dennis Hancock involved in the final chicane there. Dennis Hancock and the 2 New Zealand sim racing drivers, Silver Fern on the side. They both had drama. Ewan Baker, 2nd in the championship, as we said, has been just unable to avoid contact so far in this race. So he's side by side with Hancock at this point. He's got his teammate behind. There's almost that wheel overlap into lock. And Hancock just come across a little bit. Where's that chopper again?
So Ozicar.net replay. This is Chastanoff into turn number 1, getting all sorts of out of shape there. Merritt doing a pretty good, very good job actually of avoiding any car contact. But
Pete Vaughan getting sneaky there and going up into 2nd place as well. So of course came from 8th on the grid, and he now runs 2nd. It's that ability to move forward through the field in the reverse grid races that really makes champions in Aussie car. It's very typical of our format here to have some reverse grids. So if you win race 1, start race 2 in 10th place, and then finish it in 10th place, well, you might not end up a champion. So you just almost got nowhere to go. You just got to wait for the spin to happen in front of you there. Of course, it checks up the momentum for Merritt, and Vaughan leapfrogs him.
The Braden Martin 4.7 seconds out in front. Stuart Vaughan in a pretty good position in P2 at the moment. He's got a lot of work to do in the remaining 6 laps to reel in Braden Martin out in front. But if Vaughan and Merritt here decide to work together, they might make a decent hole in that lead that Braden Martin's managed to establish so far. But my highlight of the race, Jacob Warmeyer sitting in P4 at the moment, pretty comfortably. Good points fall for him after another good start in race number 1.
Yeah, qualified 7th, didn't talk about him a whole lot until very late on in the race when he got to 6th. Now he's moving forward in this one. Side by side for 2nd place. Braden Martin with a 5-second lead. Loves to see them battle behind him. And Vaughan holds on to his 2nd place at the moment. No reverse grid into race number 3. So where they finish here is where they start the next one as well. We're riding on board with Dyson Freeman 14th place with Tony Baker in front of him.
It's just a little bit unsettling seeing that Pulse tuning car blinking like that. You just really don't know where the car in front is going to reappear. So it's just a lot of confidence and self-belief that you're going to do the right thing. You've got to run your own race and just head down and keep hitting your racing lines and hitting your brake markers. But a bit further back in the field, this is the car of 34, Ewan Baker with Robbie Bradbury and Warren Henry in positions 7, 8, 9. Leon Williams there in the background as well, rounding out your top 10.
Yes, indeed. This 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and even 11th off the back here is pretty ferocious at the moment. Robbie Bradbury doesn't seem to have a whole heap of speed there, but that's just how the slipstream gets super powerful, especially once you start going uphill. You kind of stall out a little bit, and the car behind gets to really carry their momentum and shoot on past you as you're both hitting a VMAX and also trying to climb upgrade.
Good little pass there, using the benefit of the draft from Warren Henry, and he's got his eyes forward now. He'll be looking to latch onto the back of Ewan Baker and see if Ewan can tie him around for a lap or so. New fastest lap of the race, Stuart Vaughan, 1 minute 15.434. So doing everything he needs to try and rule that gap in from Braden Martin.
Yeah,
big ask.
Martin's lucky that Vaughan got to 2nd place on lap 6, not on lap 2. I think if we're honest with ourselves, because we've seen Vaughan, just amazing car speed, good race pace as well. Obviously qualified at 3rd, raced to the win in race number 1. So that's where his strengths seem to lie, between lap 1 and lap 12 of these 12 lap races. Merritt is not going to make it easy for him. Has to go to the outside of the sweeping left-hander. Just doesn't have the guts to think that it's going to be a good result for him if he goes along out that line.
So we are on lap 8, about to start lap number 9 of 12 in our race number 2 here tonight on Simspeed TV. Vaughan has got some work to do. That gap's still out over 5 seconds to our leaders, so unless something significantly happens to Braden Martin, which we don't want to put the commentator's curse on him, it's going to be a heck of an effort. But Jacob Wallmeyer sitting in at P4, crossing the line with 3 laps to go. Looking back, Nathan Verney doing a really good job. Darren Shannon also inside the top 10 after finishing about 12th, I think, in race number 1. So he's up quite a few positions as well, up 6.
This is Darren Shannon. I think he's been caught by Ewan Baker, who is also kind of towing a couple of cars along behind him as he looks to get back up through the field after a series of mishaps in the early going in the traffic as he was trying to battle wheel to wheel. Pick which way he wants to go on the 24, and I think Darren Shannon's trying to offer him up the left-hand side as his teammate. Oh, Pluck's wheels twice with Robbie Bradbury. In a straight line, no less. That shouldn't happen.
Just making their way out of that kink there on the back straight, and the wheels interlocked on these little Formula Fords, and once they do that, they tend to tangle and you're just a passenger. So Chasnoff getting the move done on Pluck there. But oh, that's one of the Pulse tuning cars, and the car number 23 as well. John Snell going backwards. Bit of contact down at turn number 9 down at Dandenong.
Tony Baker just seemed to lock the rears mid-corner, but didn't beach it on the curb as he tried to rejoin, which we've seen is a risk at a couple of these places here. These high curbs will high side you if you try to cross them perpendicular, like a very tall speed bump. Baker does pull off that 6th place, but this is it from Bradbury. So he has a wiggle mid-corner. This is where the run happens on him to his left. being just chopped very finely like spring onion at that apex, at that little kink.
So the big battle on track at the moment is P2, P3. Stuart Vaughan, our fastest lap holder of the race, has dropped back to P3 at the moment. So John Merritt doing a good job there, just holding him off with 2 laps to go this time by. Braden Martin has checked out. There's nearly a 6-second lead he has over the field here at the moment. So they ride the curbs just a little bit to help the car with the change of direction and make the way onto the straight. Like I said, shortest line possible is to make the way with Stuart Vaughan tucked in underneath the rear tailpipe of the Pulse Tuning John Merritt car. Has a bit of a look, but decides to pull back into line.
Merritt offered him a tiny bit of the inside line and a lot of the outside line, and Vaughan thought about that very small sliver of the inside line and then came back out of it. At this point, they're not going to catch Martin unless Martin has horrible traffic or a horrible mistake, and the way that they've battled, Merritt and Vaughan, has just done Martin a very nice service in this race lead. There's just a tiny bit of traffic between as well. Merritt subtly defensive, showing his willingness to try to cover off the inside or at least make Vaughan work for it.
Looks like Baker has made his way around Darren Shannon there further back in the field for 6th and 7th, with Warren Henry darting around in the background. He's looking to get past the car number 24 as well. Got the tribute centre helmet on there as we look over the shoulder of Warren Henry. He's got a lap to get the job done as the drivers make their way around there, get that white flag or last lap board, as you mentioned earlier. Darren Shannon getting a little bit loose, stepping out there with the tail end as he makes his way through the change of direction. Does a good job to hold it back into sequence.
You can think of, the Skippies or Formula V as a big go-kart, but what I'm seeing from the steering input of these guys, these drive the most like a go-kart of anything. They really snap them, but that's Braden Martin, the race leader, as he beached it on the curb, and he has. John Merritt goes through to the race lead. Stuart Vaughan in second, and from a tidy lead, from an uncatchable lead, Braden Martin has looped it, beached it, and he will go from first to last. This is how, just looking at Dennis Hancock too closely, lets it roll backwards, high sides it, and he is stuck like in skip point, and it means Merritt and Vaughan have got to fight it out for the race win, and they're nose to nose. Coming into the final sector, Merritt gives Vaughan just enough space, but he goes wide out the wrong side of the curb, doesn't get the drive off the corner into the final chicane. Merritt will lead them. It's possible to get a monster run off of here and beat the other guy to the line. Can Vaughan do it? Gonna watch. But I reckon Merritt has got this covered. He wasn't expecting the race win, but he inherits it halfway around the final lap. Merritt wins, and it is egg on the face for Braden Martin.
Checkered flag being waved as the drivers make their way through. We jump on board with Mandela Pluck. Had a little bit of drama throughout the course of this race. He's at the back of this train of 4 cars, and the checkered flag drops pretty early as they make their way across the straight there. Mandela Pluck just finishing in P11 outside the top 10.
Boy, oh boy. So John Merritt ends up with the win. Stuart Vaughan second. Jacob Wallmeyer, quiet achiever, silent assassin, ends up on the podium at the end of all of that, with Vernie fourth, and then Baker, Warren Henry, Darren Shannon, Leon Williams, James Chastanoff, and Dyson Freeman making good after being last in race 1, come through to a top 10 in race number 2. Gives him a good starting position for race number 3 as well, because we're done with all of the reverse grids. This is just the carryover progressive grid from the race 2 results into the grid of race 3 with Mandela Pluck, John Snell, Braden Martin. That has him scored still as 13th, but I think he's dropped to 17th. Jay clicks it off, clicks it on, and corrects. It will update that actually Tony Baker, Robbie Bradbury, Peter Wilkinson, Dennis Hancock, and Braden Martin ends up as the first car a lap down based on all of that, ahead of Ira Felberg, Brendan Nealon, Douglas Gowans, and we said Brendan Nealon? We already have. We're missing Tim Harris. Tim Harris it was. We saw him also have some problems. I think off of the race start there. He jumped the start and then maybe pulled it off. could not be more dramatic on the final lap of race number 2. There's race number 3 still to come. A little break here on Simspeed TV as the drivers get a chance to catch their breath. Braden Martin gets a chance to soak in his shame. James Chastanov gets a chance to soak in that victory and think about how he's going to take turn number 1 when he starts from pole. Jay, give us the graphics so I can thank our sponsors that make Ozicar possible as well. Here we have it. It's Sim Racing League's Locked On Lads and, of course, long-time Ozicar partners, Prestige Trophy Badge and engraving, and all of it with the No Social Hate campaign as well. The race start for race number 3 is just minutes away. Stay with us.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today. We've had 24 laps of Ozicar Formula Ford action so far from Sandown Raceway, and we've got 12 more to go. Every single one of them, something to talk about. Look forward to seeing exactly what race number 3 delivers. So far, your man of the round has been Stuart Vaughan, coming with a championship lead. Got 1 first, 1 second to his name, and we'll be starting this race number 3 off the front row of the grid. Jason.
Yeah, proving himself to be a good little peddler in these cars, plenty of real life experience, and that's translating through to some really good results in the championship. Round number 5 of 6 here tonight, so we are counting down, and he's sitting in a pretty good position. We just look at the starting grid for race number 3, and like I said, John Merritt and Vaughan off race number 2, off row number 1, sorry. A little bit further back in the field, they were outside the top 10, Tony Baker, Robbie Bradbury, Peter Wilkinson and Dennis Hancock. Braden Martin, after his disastrous round 2, race 2 out of 17. Brandon Newland and Douglas Gowans, I think, may have potentially left the race already, packed up, put his car in the trailer and gone home.
Yep, that would be correct. So that looks like 20 cars for our grid. 5-second board is out, so the drivers know to be ready. Have their feet on the pedals that they need, the paddles that they need, or the H shifter that they need. And it's a green light for go on the front row. The inside gets a great launch. Third place gets a great launch, and Nathan Verney as well. So things look good for John Merritt and Verney, and they're 3 wide immediately behind, and there is hardly 3 Formula Fords with, but Ewan Baker once again super aggressive off the start, picks off a spot as Jacob Wallmeyer goes backwards too. No contact made just yet on a track a little bit cooler than it was before. A lockup and some puffs of smoke in the background. Here's another little cheeky look, this time from Mandela Pluck. It might have been there. Race lead, John Merritt's got it, but it's so hard to keep it with 2 long straights in the Formula Ford.
Yeah, Vaughan making his intentions known early as he takes the inside line, uses that draft to take the lead of the race. Merritt can't do a lot to defend there as he makes his way around through the sweeper. Back in P3, Ewan Baker, followed by Nathan Verney, doing a really good job, and Jacob Wallmeyer sitting in P5 as they make their way towards the end of lap number 1. James Chastanoff is making grounds as well, sitting in P number 6.
See Robbie Bradbury with a little bit of contact there, just getting shoved to the wrong side of the curb and looking to rejoin, hopefully without too much damage. Here's Vaughan at the race lead. Here's Merritt looking to strike back. Is he? Yes, he is. Peeking to the inside. Both of them offer a buffet of slipstream to Ewan Baker in the 3rd position behind. Merritt with the inside will always go in a little bit hotter than Vaughan, who looks to cross back. They head to this little chicane where a touring car will leap all of the curbs and a Formula Ford will say, no, that doesn't quite work for me and my suspension. And Henry in 14th has gone backwards big time after starting much higher on the grid. He's -8 spots. Here's Braden Martin, and it looked like it might have been him and Robbie Bradbury as they go side by side here. And he gets a little bit of the inside, hops a little bit of the curb, and then escorts Mr. Bradbury off onto the grass. Vaughan leading Merritt. Baker oh so close now. Wallmeyer, I reckon the silent assassin could be apt as he's in 4th, not far off of them with Verney and Chastanoff. It's looking like a top 6 breakaway. Shannon, we're looking mid-pack here at Warren Henry, trying to come back through, Jason.
Yeah, Warren just having a bit of a moment at lap number 2, turn number 1.
And the big movement in front of the Mandela Pluck around, and is that Martin Kane or it's Darren Shannon, methinks?
Yeah, those distinctive red wheels, and it looks like they have separated themselves, but just got to wait for the field to make their way through before they reverse back out. Stuart Vaughan, an uncharacteristic, a mistake.
Uncharacteristic even?
That's the one.
Dare one to say atypical, potentially. Yeah, you're right. He's gone in super deep to 1, dropped back from 1st to 3rd, potentially, as Baker, who was his main title rival coming into this round, but had a perfect race 1 or 2, lost a couple of points to the championship leader. It's not Sharon's fault whatsoever as Pluck gets sideways and spins right in front of him. You're racing within a car length. You have no time to react if you're right at the gearbox of the driver in front there. So close. A car park, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. John Merritt wants to, through the first half of Braden Martin's race 2, and get away from the battling gaggle behind.
He's doing just that. The gap back to 2nd is 1.3 seconds with Baker leading this little train. So John Merritt's sole hope is that they trip over each other and cause themselves to slow down a little bit. You can see Merritt there just trying to move around on the straight. It is a 1.5 second gap back, so I don't think these drivers are going to get any benefit of tow. not from the leader at least, they might from each other. Stuart Vaughan making a lot better effort through turn number 1 that time round. Baker having a bit of a look on the exit of turn number 1, unable to get the move done. But of course, Chastanoff sitting there in P4 as well, shadowing the guys. This is Jacob Warmeyer and the distinctive green and purple livery, using the draft to pull himself along. You can see James Chastanoff up in front. And as we look over his rear shoulder, that's Nathan Verney in the background behind him.
So it is. They're side by side in front, and that's where Warmeyer's focus is going to be as Vaughan and Baker continue their fight. Vaughan getting a huge load of grass, getting in a little hot to that one. Baker with a better exit has got to pick, do you go left, do you go right? The track snakes a little bit before the chicane, and it can be a pinch point whichever way you go. You'll have to look to come back underneath with a switchback. Tough to do when there's other cars behind you, and both of them get the wrong side of the exit curb off the final corner, and it makes it another little conga line, a snake down the front straight of Sandown International Motor Raceway. Vaughan, Baker, Chastanoff, Wallmeyer, and Verney just popping in and out of existence there. Might have been one of the things that caused him grief on the race start last race. Contact that somehow doesn't tangle them up, doesn't spin them. Chasty up in a third, one of the mega movers of this race, 6 positions gained, along with Tim Harris, who started very rear of grid and has gained 12 spots into 9th. This is Vaughan. Somehow that's a legal maneuver to get all of the grass, hop it sideways, all of the curb, bit of oppo as you brake into the Dandenong corner.
You can see these drivers are pushing, trying to get 11 tenths out of these cars. They are low horsepower, but they do produce some excellent racing, as we've seen here tonight around the Sandown Raceway. Chastanoff getting the job done on Baker. Wallmeyer moving around in the mirrors, looking for an opportunity as well. Nathan Verney doing a really good job in the background, just waiting for an opportunity to present itself as well.
So it is super close racing for everyone but John Merritt. The tail of the field, there's a tiny bit more spacing, including for some of the drivers that got tangled up and stuff like Darren Shannon and Manzella Pluck. Checking an onboard from Ewan Baker. Here he is, just behind Chasty. Oh, they must make almost a tiny bit of contact. He's steering the opposite way the corner goes there. Then he gets the curb. Yeah, nice save. These things are so agile. They seem to just have a whole heap of point on turn in, and the drivers flick the wheel in towards the corner and then really straighten up the wheel and let the inertia keep the car turning through the corners like you flick a cart in. Definitely different to supercars.
So while the battle up the front sorts itself out, we look a bit further deeper in the field. This is the battle for 7, 8, 9. Tim Harris, as well as Dyson Freeman and Tony Baker, diving around, all trying to break the toe of each other. Plenty of gamesmanship happening here in the background. This is on board Tim Harris looking at the back of Dyson Freeman in number 26, make the way down into that heavy braking zone again. Staying there off the curb on the inside, using a little bit of curb on the exit to straighten the car back up as they get the power down.
Just a reminder that Tim Harris came from stone dead motherless in this race, 21st on the grid, up to this 7th place where he runs right now. There's the race leader up the road from him coming in towards turn 1. We have struggled to catch him with the number of laps remaining. Struggle for the rest of them to catch John Merritt from 2nd place with the number of laps remaining, with Vaughan, Chastanoff, Baker and Wallmeyer still in a bit of a scrap here, though if you think they could catch the race leader, Vaughan's probably the man to do it. Braden Martin trying to get down the inside, does not make the corner whatsoever as he makes contact there for the 2nd time in this race at that same corner.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of frustration creeping in after a potential race 1 win in race number 2, that going by the wayside. So Braden Martin having to fight his way literally through the field here in race number 3, not making too many friends in the process. As we look here, this is Tony Baker and Dyson Freeman still battling. Baker gets on the gas a little bit early, bit of a tank slapper, manages to pull it back around, only losing 1 position and a little bit of time. More importantly, no damage, and he's able to continue.
Yeah, a big moment. Car doesn't look completely all right for
Tony Baker, as in the next corner it's still a bit of a wobble. Said if anyone's going to catch John Merritt, it could be Stuart Vaughan. He just goes and lays down the fastest lap of the race. Not really any pressure off the drivers behind. He's pulling them along at the moment. Chastanoff just that sort of 4-5 car lengths back when they're at speed down the straights, and then Baker behind that, Wallmeyer behind that, always just in touching distance of the top 5 by the looks of things. So with 4 laps to go when they get to the line, Vaughan's 1.7 seconds off the lead. Realistically, you think he only needs to find, what, 5/10 to start hooking that slipstream, and it's on?
Yeah, the draft is quite powerful here, as we've already experienced throughout the course of the night. We still have 4 laps remaining, and we know that Vaughan isn't going to throw in the towel. He's going to race this thing, race the rubber off it, race down to the rims until the checkered flag drops. So that gap down to 1.7 seconds now. Just a little bit of breathing room back to Chastanoff, so we know he knows he's not under pressure. He's just got to put his blinkers on, focus on what's in front of him, and head down.
4 laps to go. Yeah, 1.6 seconds first to second place. And thought Chastanoff and Baker maybe getting towed along a little bit here. Certainly the case as Chastity goes and takes the fastest lap of the race just there, assisted the whole way around by a very generous tow from Stuart Vaughan. I'd go so far as to say, 2 long straights, some short shoots, mainly left-handers. Basically Melbourne's Indianapolis, this place. Can you hear the twang off of that stretch? Like how taut I've made it?
Clutching at straws, but there is plenty of walls to hit, which is, Indianapolis doesn't have a lot of runoff, and nor does Sandown Raceway. We've seen a couple of cars into the Armco fence already. Warren Henry having a bit of a sniff and a look down the inside, looking pretty aggressive and racy late in the race. He gets the job done there on Dennis Hancock. Big braking zone. Manages to pull it up without too much drama. He gets the job done and moves himself up into P10. That's Jacob Wallmeyer.
So consistent to this point. He drops back now, about to lose another spot to Tim Harris, who's now plus 15 positions in a 21 car grid in a sprint race format. He is on a charge, but all of it a little too late to pick up a podium. So for Wallmeyer, it's all by himself. It's out wide, it's wrong side of the curb, and it's just a kiss on the grass, and the combination of the, I think, concrete rather than bitumen that's on that side of the curb, and now he's on the wrong side of the curb again, down at turn 4. And precision, a millimetre away from the tyres. He has lost his rhythm big time.
Yeah, putting his drifting into action, that was definitely grass, that one there. Into turn number 4, Chastanoff using plenty of curve as well. Tony Hawk, skateboard style, grinding the Formula Ford over the top of those high curbs as they made their way down the hill.
I'm watching that gap first to second. It's down to almost basically a second. It will be 2 laps to go. It means Vaughan could just about catch here coming to the start-finish line, close up with the draft on this lap, and on the final lap be in position to attack. John Merritt's lead has been chipped and chipped and chipped away at. Now it is going to evaporate like a puddle in the sun underneath that 1 second. Vaughan taking back the fastest lap of the race on that one. Bit between the teeth, and he is charging forward with the sights on a second race win and to really put some authority on his championship lead.
Yeah, he's almost got that win it or bin it attitude. He definitely wants to take that race win and go into the final round with as big a buffer and margin as he can. John Merritt, though, in that championship hunt, he'll be doing everything he needs to do to try and bring this home with a lap and a half to go. Down to 0.699 as the draft plays benefit across the back straight for Vaughan.
Yeah, you can count it down as Vaughan got within that 1 second. That's give or take the magic number for a lot of race cars on iRacing. At that point, oh yeah, we're in the tow, we're gaining kilometre an hour or 2 extra that we didn't have before. You really just start walking down the gap, and on the final lap of the race, it's half a second
Vaughan has got speed. He's 2 kilometers an hour faster, 3 kilometers an hour faster as they head down the pit straight. And John Merritt would be forgiven for breaking into just a little bit of sweat at this moment when he knows he's got the championship leader breathing down his neck with lightning pace on the final lap.
Yeah, Vaughan 0.6 second quicker than Merritt there on that last lap, so he's definitely got the momentum and the speed, and this is potentially the opportunity he needs. That's 0.2 of a second. It's going to be a big ask into the braking zone up here. It's going to be full commitment by Vaughan, but we'll jump on board. We'll just see how powerful that draft is as he draws closer and closer to John Merritt.
Get towards the end of the straight, they start going more sharply uphill. They start hitting that wall of air a little bit more, and it forces Merritt to cover. Vaughan's been really good under the brakes here, and you know he's going to have a look. You know Merritt's going to cover it, so Vaughan looks for a switchback to get a better exit here. Merritt knew what was coming. He knew where to put the car defensively, and he's going to drive defensively again. Shallow on the inside here. Can Vaughan get all the way around the outside to deserve the apex at the second? He can, but he's pinched so tight, he's not going to get the drive to the checkered flag. And John Merritt, perfect defensive driving to hold on to that race win, to keep Vaughan behind. Chastity in third for the podium, and Ewan Baker a very close fourth. This is much deeper in the field between Tony Baker and Jacob Wallmeyer. This time around the outside doesn't look like the preferred line for Tony Baker. Does he get enough drive? They're racing to the checkered flag. The line that they cross just there sees Wallmeyer steal it by 1/100th of a second. 8,000th by that measure.
Baker just getting a little bit high on that curb, and Wallmeyer getting the better drive. Looking back in the field, though, Peter Wilkinson, we haven't spoken a lot of P-Dog throughout the course of the race. He's had a little bit of dramas through earlier in the night, but a good result tonight. Actually, he's dropped back from positions from where I saw him a little bit earlier. He was up as high as 12th, I think, a couple of laps ago. But he crosses the line as Barney waves at that checkered flag. Following him across the line, looks like Brendan Nealon as well.
So Barney in other places has been taught to wave, but obviously his Antipodean cousin is still beating that dishcloth to get all the crumbs off it at the start-finish line. Doesn't matter to the drivers. They know what the flag is and what it means, and it means a race win for John Merritt. He was first to it, holding off immense pressure, and I think driving defensively, but just within reason on that final lap to show that Vaughan only had a couple opportunities and just needed to cover them off at those on the final lap to take a well-deserved race win that he's going to feel good about. Vaughan and Chastanov completing that podium there. Ewan Baker with a fourth. What a topsy-turvy round he seems to have had tonight. Involved in a whole lot, but still bagging results out of all the races. 4th, 5th, 4th. Nathan Verney, Tim Harris, Dyson Freeman, Jacob Wallmeyer, Tony Baker, and Warren Henry is that top 10. Got to be credit to Dyson Freeman just working his way back through this field from a 21st place finish to a 10th to a 7th as we went on. And Dennis Hancock, Leon Williams, Braden Martin, John Snell, Robbie Bradbury, Ira Felberg, Peter Wilkinson, Brendan Nealon, Darren Shannon, and we saw Mandela Pluck spinning it off the final corner, and he ended up retiring after that. And Douglas Gowan's not able to take race number 3. All in all, I think you'd say Stuart Vaughan would be pretty well pleased with that round. An average finish of 1.66. And we'll have some drivers to chat with us, Jason.
Yes, we'll drag third place getter tonight in the feature race, James Chastanoff, up into the comms box. Chasty, well, a mixed result for you tonight. Good result in race 1, not so bad, or not so good in race number 2, but then you had the best seat in the house for the finish there in race number 3.
Yeah, it was alright. Just made too many mistakes. Even just small ones in the first and last race as well. It sort of cost me any chance of sort of having a sniff of the win, I guess. But I think on pace, I think I was about 3rd place anyway. So yeah, happy to just get the 2/3.
So Sandown, a favourite track of yours, very well suited for these cars, but we did see a little bit of trouble with some of the drivers tonight getting beached on the high aggressive curbs in these low profile vehicles. Yeah,
I can think of one particular person getting beached. he wasn't too particularly happy at the time, and it made me feel a little bit better about my incident actually, because that was much worse than what I ended up going through. So
Was he beached as bro?
he was very beached. I forward that message on him, but yeah, no, it's a shame for Braden there. He pretty much had that race won, and I think John in the middle of the race is actually calling out saying, "Hey, you're letting him go," and I was kind of going, "Yeah, that's kind of the point." So I was a little bit of helping him out there. So it's a bit of a shame he couldn't get that win.
So despite that, a good points haul tonight. I'm sure you'll be, I said, a third in race number 1, still a top 10 in race number 2, and of course a third in race number 3. So good bit of consistency there over the course of the night. Like you said, you showed good qualifying speed. You did manage to hold on to the fastest lap of the race at some stage in the feature race as well. So carrying that speed, that momentum into our final round at Bathurst in a fortnight's time, that we'll see what you can potentially pull out of the bag there.
Yeah, see what we could do. I mean, points-wise, probably wasn't the best. Even though it was fairly good results tonight, probably really wasn't the best sort of gain. I probably just needed to keep it on the track in race 2, and then I'd be saying, yeah, it was a great points haul. But yeah, see what happens at Bathurst. I think anything can really happen there. So, and it's a one race, so you make one mistake, that's three races worth of mistakes right there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how we go over there in 2 weeks' time.
All right, I'll throw over to shout out to your sponsors and any of your supporters before we let you go tonight.
Yeah, I just want to thank the full team at Low Bar. I think we've got a pretty good partnership going on at the moment. And yeah, I think crashing into each other seems to be the way that we're all going. So just a big shout out to them and everyone watching my stream. Thanks. Cheers,
All right,
guys.
third place getter tonight, James Chasson off car number 42. He will be back in 2 weeks' time. Like I said, we'll be at Bathurst and we'll see what he can do to potentially bring home a podium and round out his season. Dave, I think you've gone for a bit of a wander. You got the microphone in your hand and potentially found another one of our podium setters tonight.
Yeah, I reckon I'll go John Merritt, because by all accounts, John Merritt should be our round winner at Sandown. A second, a first, and a first. It's treated you pretty well.
Yeah, no, it was a good night. I was probably lucky in that last race. If there was another lap in it, Stuart was coming hard, so pretty hard to escape that draft round here too.
Yeah, last 2 laps of that final race. Talk us through your sort of corner by corner mentality. You're looking at your relative box every corner, or trying not to look at it?
Oh, I think that's the biggest. That's probably the biggest, easiest mistake to make. You start looking at the relative, and I mean, Stuart was probably making earlier on maybe a tenth if he was lucky. I was sort of holding the gap around that 1.8 seconds, but just a few little errors, and 0.2 here, 0.2 there, and as soon as someone gets a sniff at 1.2 seconds, they're definitely in the race. I know I'm no different. You know, it's different to hold the lead at that point, David.
Reverse grid races are always pretty exciting as well. You came from 7th on the grid to win race number 2. How would you sort of summarize charting your course through that one?
I was fairly fortunate. One to miss, I think James Chastanoff had an issue at turn 1, and I managed to avoid that. Braden had cleared out, but yeah, I sort of managed to get to that second position pretty early, but sadly Braden had an incident on the last or second to last lap and was sort of handed to me, so a lucky night all round.
You take the checkered flag first at 2 of 3 opportunities. You come away with the round win and some solid racing. Congratulations, and are you going to throw any shout outs or thanks while we got you?
Oh, Matt, I better thank Pulse Tuning and Chuka Toyota and the guys that were in the Discord, Tony and Brendan. They're always good for a race. So, and congratulations, Stuart. So I can't make the Bathurst round, so I expect he'll take away the championship. So congrats. It's been a pleasure racing Stuart all season.
Well, you and Baker could still be in it, and we know nothing's for certain until it's for certain.
That's true.
Just ask
That's
Braden
true.
Martin.
No, that's exactly right. Not until someone sings. It's the fat lady.
Very well could be. Congratulations, and I guess we won't see you next time out, as you say.
Sadly.
But always been good to have you.
always a pleasure. And thanks for your efforts at Simspeed all season.
Beauty. John Merritt leaves us with just one more race winner that we've got to have a chat with.
Of course, the man on the screen, man of the moment, and our championship leader going into the final round, Stuart Vaughan. Welcome to the comms box here at Simspeed TV.
Yeah, thanks, boys. That was eventful, wasn't it? Hope it looked pretty good because it sure wasn't easy out there.
No, well, a pretty good night for you in the scheme of things, going in, holding on to the championship lead at the start of the night, qualifying P3, still up the pointy end of the field, but managed to convert that into a race win to start the night off with all efforts. And from there, I don't think you stepped off the podium all night. It's a couple of second places to round out the evening.
Yeah, overall a pretty good points haul. I mean, definitely was thinking championship because we've only got one round after this, so didn't want to screw it up and have to work my way from the back. But at the same time, gee, it's hard to not resist the temptation, isn't it?
Yeah, we definitely could see the commitment and the drive you were wringing in the neck of that little Formula Ford in the dying laps of race number 3 tonight. Managed to get that down with half a second with one lap to go, through everything, including the kitchen sink at that, and just not quite able to get across the line and get the drive out of that final corner.
Yeah, I was having a bit of trouble with turn 1 there, just sort of as I'm releasing the brake, not real confident on what the car's going to be understeering or oversteering, and but towards the end started to get my head around it a bit more. But gee, these cars are fun to drive.
So, have you got any real world experience here at Sandown in these vehicles?
No, not at all, mate, not at all. So, just the iRacing for me.
So, fully committed, you managed to work your way around there without too much trouble tonight. Obviously kept your car clean in one piece and the thing pointing in the right direction. That's the first step you got to do to bring home a great result here tonight. A couple of cars we saw have some carnage and get caught up with a few little incidents over the course of the night, but definitely throwing these cars left and right through some of these corners. I did remember at one point, I think you got 3 wheels off the ground heading down into Dandenong. She would look like she was a handful.
Yeah, I mean, it may have looked like I was in control, but in all honesty, I didn't know what was going on, mate. So,
anyway, we head off to Bathurst for our final race for the season in a fortnight's time. And you got a game plan? Are you just you out to win it, or potentially just bring it home and try and make sure we maximise that championship lead?
Oh, look, mate, I'd like to, be calculated, but as it says on the top of my helmet, if you ain't first, you're last.
Well, that's what we'd like to see here tonight, because it produces absolutely stellar racing, as we've seen in all 3 races tonight around Sandown. So, congratulations to first and 2 seconds. So, absolutely stellar job tonight. Done everything you needed to do to take the lead into the final round in 2 weeks' time. Top job. Any shout-outs you want to do before we let you go?
I think we've always given you guys a shout out, but honestly, thank you so much. Like, these are some videos that I can go back on in a few years' time and show the kids. Look, man, may not have had the money to go real racing, but check this out. So, really appreciate you guys and what you do. Yep. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Guess it's just you and me left, mate. I might have to sign us out.
Yeah, I'll have to jump in and talk because it sounds like we've got a couple of guys with internet issues. I've been sitting in the back watching, but thanks for jumping in, Stu, for the night. And as we said, next round will be at Mount Panorama Bathurst in 2 weeks' time. Big thanks to all the sponsors and supporters of Ozicar, and big thanks to everyone who races and gets involved. Big thanks to No Social Hate, Sim Racing Leagues, Locked On Lads, and Prestige Trophy Badge and Engraving. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Mount Panorama.